while they're getting that together. So Steve Hegarty's my name. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, Jim and Greg and Ian. As Greg said, I had a little bit of involvement in Ian's trial work on Greg's farm, more from just a GPS guidance point of view. I had about 10 years of field agronomy work, mostly in broadacre grains, so out through the Western Darling Downs, through West Marmooney, Surat. So a far cry from turf, but hopefully some of the principles I talk about today you can take home and think about how they might work in your system. So I was asked to talk about variable rate fertiliser spreading. I think that was the brief I was given. Very hard to bring a spread along and really show variable rate spreading without throwing a lot of material around. So instead I just sort of thought, well, what about the principles of how would I get to the point of variable rate spreading? And then at the end I've just got a video of a spreader in action. So pull me up at all if you've got any questions. So I guess whenever a grower comes to me, regardless of what they're growing, and says, I want to get into precision ag, how do I do it? Everyone's doing it. Where do I go? And to me, it's all about this identifying variability. Do I have enough variability to care? Because, often in small farming systems with small management zones, you may not have a high degree of variability within your management area. And Ian's project in some of the horticultural stuff probably debunked some of those theories, that there was some more variability than we thought, even in really, really small fields. So, how do I identify this variability? And, it's all about using this whole range of spatial data layers. So Paul spoke earlier about EM. Well, EM is just one of your soil layers. Elevation, pretty easy to get good elevation data these days, from the government, from a LiDAR, from an aeroplane or a UAV, from your RTK GPS system. This crop health layer, which we'll talk about a bit. Yield was mentioned right at the start of the morning. Gee, wouldn't it be good if we had yield? Maybe we will one day in turf. And they're probably the four main agronomic spatial data layers that we tend to use to try and make better decisions about how we micromanage our farms. And there are more and more layers of spatial data coming in. So as our machines get more technologically enabled, CAN bus controlled, all GPS logged, the filing cabinet of these spatial data layers is going to get thicker and thicker. So that's an example. Doesn't apply to turf, I know, but that's an example of a guy that had his spray application volume dropped out in this section. Nothing new about documenting what you've sprayed and where you've sprayed it accurately. That's an as-applied spatial data layer. But then over here we've got a speed map, and shock horror, the two line up. He was going too fast in that section for the nozzles that he was running. So these spatial data layers, just think of them as decision support tools to help you do a better job. So back to, I want to do PA. Is it worthwhile doing it? Do I have enough variability to care? So how am I going to work out, do I have enough variability? You're probably going to have a fair idea just from your manual records and visual assessments. If you're the owner of the business, if you're growing the crop or growing the turf and you're spending a lot of time in the seat, you're going to have a fair idea about this. But obviously it's a bit subjective and the accuracy might be variable. Yield mapping, I've put there no, not for turf, but maybe that's something for another day. We do play around with some load cell based yield mapping systems that we put on vegetable harvesters. And obviously remote sensing, detecting changes in biomass or plant health. And yep, you guys have got heaps of options in turf for this. So you hear a lot about NDVI this morning. NDVI is just to measure basically the amount of infrared and near-infrared light that the plant's either absorbing or reflecting. So have I got an area of my turf that's got more biomass and it's darker green, or do I have an area that's got less biomass and less green? Simple as that. How am I going to get it? Well, you can get it from a satellite with improving resolution or accuracy. You can get it from a UAV. Changes coming in the CASA rules in September. You're probably going to see a lot more UAVs. And as was mentioned earlier by Greg, I think, tractor-mounted sensors. So green seekers, I won't steal down your stuns that are on Optrix. Any sensor, there's a whole range out there of mounted sensors you can put on your gear to get this layer. So this was a couple of shots I stole from one of Ian's other projects. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated. It was 11 o'clock last night. So that's an example of one type of sensor mounted on the front of the machine. I think over the fast term, what we might have noticed. I'm unsure what the actual crop was. I think it might have been hay crop. But effectively what we've got is difference in the amount of light that crop has either absorbed or reflected. And the amount of variability measured here by the CD, 10%. So whether it's turf, whether it's grain, whether it's sugar cane, same principle. That's your way, your primary way of identifying, do I have enough variability within my turf block to really care? And this is where the farmer in me comes out. The so what factor. Now show this to the grower here. So what? You turn the pictures into dollars is what I always say to a producer. We need to identify what is the cost in lost productivity or lost quality from that spatial data layer. And the big event is if I want to go and invest in like some of the VRI stuff we looked at, or the error rates, breeding, etc. This one here, return on investment. Is there enough variability over my size operation to really get payback? And along with the quantifying variability, go check the data in the field. Ground truth. You probably get a lot of answers without going too much into it. So ground truth, just go look at the data. It's no good on a piece of A4 paper. These days, most software systems will export it out into something like Google Earth. The Lindsay guys are mentioning they use KMZ, KML files. That's awesome because it's pretty common sort of file format. And go and actually walk that NDVI or whatever spatial data layer you're lucky enough to have and try to identify, well, what is the cause of variability? And more often than not, the grower will know what it is. Was it agronomy? Yep. That was the concept that pulled an upgrass patch from the last crop. Management, yep, I was a bit late on watering on that section. Equipment setup, yep, that was the first problem with cover or half strip trying to complete. There's probably a lot of low-hanging fruit to work out in terms of identifying that variability before you go to these next steps of trying to do spatial data analysis. But if you can't see the obvious answers here, we move on to things like, alright, my soil, is there variability in my soil? Is that aligned to variability in my crop health through NDVI? Or water on, water off? Poor drainage of water getting off the field or going through the profile? How do I fix it? How do I fix it? So, I hope you don't mind. That's a picture of golden finch over Google Earth. There's a pivot here, and I think this is sprinkler irrigated. So, in his example, he has some RTK elevation data. We basically put that into some land leveling software. We pretended that it's all block concrete. So, different soils, different amounts of cover may have different amounts of infiltration or runoff. Like we said, if it all infiltrated the same or run off the same, where would the water run? Or more importantly, where would the water not run? So in this example, there's a pivot, there's a section there that is effectively depression. You can see a lot of flow accumulation paths off the entire pivot and this non-farm section that are all accumulating through this part of the turf block. Is that having an effect? And that's the example of, if it's not obvious, is it having an effect? So that's a block of winch tracks. That's NDVI over the top of the 3D elevation model, and we've modelled where are the depressions in the field. We've lined that up with the NDVI and said, yep, shot horrible, the water can't get off. We don't have as much biomass, as much plenty health. There's a lot of talk earlier about EMs. It's just another spatial data layer. It's a way of trying to identify variation in our soil types. Just think of EM as changing conductivity. That's all it is. The soil conductivity map. The things are going to make it more or less conductive. A wet soil is going to be more conductive than a dry soil. A clay is going to be more conductive than a sand. And salts are going to act as an electrolyte. So those three things together or in combination are driving this EM that's a EM38 map over the Golden Finch blocks. So we go from low conductivity here, a figure of an ECA of about 5 to 10, through to the high conductivity blue zones, which are around 30 to 35. So people say, well, is 30 a bad number or a good number? Don't know. But we know that whatever's driving conductivity in these blue zones, they are 3 to 4 times more conductive than the red zones. So we're going to hypothesise that the red zones are either drier or a lighter soil type. The blue zones are either a heavy soil type, wetter or salty. And when we went and did some ground truthing, this gentleman here was with me. We took a 60 odd mil soil probe water somewhere through here, and I reckon we found an old riverbed. And depth and found cool sink. And again, so what? We've got variable soils. Maybe you don't have variation in the crop due to variable soils. That's what you do. You can probably see a visual alignment there. NDVI versus soil conductivity from the EM. But you can pull it apart and start to quantify how much is the relationship and hopefully then what's the optimum. So I want to do variable rate fertiliser spreading, what I was asked about today. I just chose one hypothetical example of why would I want a variable rate fertiliser spreader and how would you do it. So I'm going to say that in that example before, we did find enough variability in the biomass or health of the turf from NDVI, regardless of whether we got it from satellite, from the UAV, or from the Optrixes or the N-seekers, etc. We've gone and ground truthed it. We've found that the variability, hypothetically, has correlation with the soil EM data. So we're feeling confident that soil type change is affecting the turf. We've done our ground truthing. Now I want to go variable rate spreading. Here you go. How I'm going to do it. So depending on the soil test history you may have, or the tissue test history you may have, you're probably going to do some site-specific sampling using, again, that spatial data, whether it be the NDVI or the EM, maybe drainage layers, etc. They're going to be your guide as to where we take the samples from. I'm going to go and soil test a block and do like a GIF, random sampling, and to do something even worse, mix all up the buckets together. I'm going to get a very, very different result than if I went and tested each of these EM soil zones separately and specific water. And then it's on to a RX file for machine control. So I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about the top one, on fly. I mean that's, for this industry, probably where you want to eventually get to is on the fly, getting feedback from an NDVI sensor mounted on the tractor. It's saying that patch is slightly more yellow. History tells me that more yellow is due to nutrition, not to any other factors. And I wanted to instantly provide feedback to the spreader to put on more of those fertiliser. Of course, there's a lot of work in coming up with your own on-farm R&D to calculate the algorithm to say that the value of X on the sensor is always going to be a value of Y for fertiliser. But I'm pretty sure that's where we're headed, correct? Or you can keep it simple stupid. You go back to the old map-based prescriptions. This is the new idea. Something was mentioned earlier about the cotton industry. I mean, cotton and grain and silos that are lucky enough to have had yield maps to put with their NDVI maps and maybe their EM maps. Being able to do map-based prescriptions on liquid and solid inputs for 15 years. Perhaps for some of you, that's an easier place to start experimenting with prescription management rather than up here, but I'm really want to talk about the top one. What I'm going to run through is the bottom one, and I'm just trying to hopefully show you that it's not that scary. So, it doesn't matter what sort of software you use, even though I'm with a John Deere dealer, I don't use their software, I use a third-party set of tools, which allows me to do things with all sorts of different brands. So I've set spatial data layer I'm going to build my prescription map on for Greg's pivot. It's going to be from an EM layer. Maybe I'm going to do it in the NDVI layer, doesn't matter. So, I'm going to mark out my pivot. no point having a zone that's half the size of this shed if you can't change, say, fertiliser spreading at half the size of the shed. Depends on the scale of your operation. You know, wheat farms I used to work on, if you've got 120 foot air section, that one zone is less than a couple of hectares. You guys, I don't know what the zone's going to be. It might be 10 by 10, I don't know. But these management zones, this is the hard bit. This is the agronomic bit that's going to take a long time to get confidence in. How do I split up the management of that field? Telling a machine or a GPS controller that in each of those different zones I want a different rate, that's the easy bit. So that's what I did. I did that last night about 11 o'clock in 2 minutes because I didn't really care where these went. Probably going to take you guys 2 years. And I've just quickly created a prescription map. I've said the red I want 120 kilo urea, 80 here, 60 there. I've just set the default on the dark blue areas the same way. I flipped it out as a shape file. I asked a question before about shape files and cones, XMLs. If you want a common file format you can use across different systems. Now I want to implement it. So, any GPS system, basically 3 components. Something on the roof tells me where I am for varying degrees of accuracy. The operator interface, the display, the thing I'm going to load this into, and a controller, saying speed up or slow down. So in this case, this shape file is going to go into any brand GPS. It's effectively going to say to that calibrator spreader, I want you to speed up and slow down the flow of fertiliser for a linear actuator. I've been showing you a gate. When I cross into this zone, I need to open up the water and put on all the brake. It's not that hard. So, you know, I guess what I'd say is don't be scared about the technology and the machine control. That's, okay, you're backing up. That's the easy bit. Calibrating sometimes hard work. And hopefully you'll back me up here. It's this one here is the hard work, developing that zone of management.
Yeah, so I think it's sort of a new way to, or a different way to think than what you're doing for many, many years.
So,
which is way to race.
Yeah. So that's, you know, a fairly long segue to a variable rate spreader. But, you know, before someone comes into our shop and says, I've got a spreader, I want you to convert it to VR, or I want to go variable rate, I guess my job in our business is always that saying, well, hang on, what are you trying to achieve? Is it going to be paid out on what you want to do or not? So, I don't know, have we got an external speaker?
As this spreader is equipped with the weight cell system, the rate is controlled via an electric actuator. The actuator is used in combination with a separate shutter actuator. So this shutter actuator opens and closes the shutter, for example on your headlamps. The nice thing about that is that the rate actuator can always stay where it needs to be for the rate we require. Apart from automatic calibration, the sulky load spreaders are also easy to connect to GPS, which means that the shutters will then open and close automatically on the headlamps, and that takes the guesswork out of opening and closing the shutters. We're here with the sulky spreaders set up on a John Deere Green Star system. So on the front page we got a picture of our machine with a little eyebrows here which give us the shutter setting. It tells me there's only 25 kilo or 24 kilos in the hopper, which is not a big deal. We got information here like the product we are spreading, which is urea, 12 meters working width, and up here our forward speed will appear. We have a number of buttons here that have to do with tri-board, which is boundary spreading, load cells. The main buttons we're going to use today is start and stop, and the stop and go. And stop and go, when that is active, we basically allow the spreader to look for a task controller, which means that we'll have automatic on and off of the spreaders, or of the shutters, sorry. We got this machine set up here with a prescription map. So if we have a closer look at the map, we can see we're currently outside the boundary. The map has different colors which indicate a different application rate. So in a minute we're going to start spreading, and we'll see from the moment we're going to start driving that the shutters will come on and the machine will put up whatever rate it needs to. So we've turned our machine on. We're about to drive over the boundary, so any second now we'll see the shutters turn on. Go. There we go. So we got our application rate. The rate is in green, that means it's working with the prescription map. If it's blue, it means it's not looking at the map, so if you have normal operation. So you can see where the spreader's working. And in a minute we're going to cross from one zone to another, so we're going to go to a different color of map, which means we are actually going to go to a different rate. So if you go back to the spreader, see we've gone to about 130 kilograms per hectare now. 150. The stop and go function will also make sure that the shutters will turn themselves off when we come to the headlands. So we're coming back up to our boundary, so we're going to start driving in the paddock. So if we look at the spreader, there we go, we're back working. If we drive over an area which has already been spread, so we're just going to turn left here, you'll see the overlap that's appearing, and you will see the spreader starting to react to that. So first it will turn off the left hand side, there we go, and then it will turn on off the right hand side. So because we're driving over an area which has already been covered, so as we keep going to the next tram line, we'll see the spreader come on again. There we go, one side's back on.